Yes guys, Jess here, back with another video. You read the title, you can see we have a red market across the board right now. Bitcoin actually just lost $80,000 and you can see that Ethereum's just lost $1,700 right now. So we need to be going through all the relevant charts that I have prepared for you guys and all the analysis as quick as possible so we know what's potentially going to be coming in the next 24 hours, as this is going to be a massive week. You can see right now on the CryptoCraft calendar we have core CPI next week, and we also have the PPI coming on Friday. So we have a lot of things coming up, and of course we have the FOMC Fed minutes coming in. So this is a massive week up and coming. So yeah, make sure to smash up that like button. Let's try to get above 20 likes this video. That'd be absolutely amazing, guys. And with that being said, let's go straight away in towards this banger. Bow. Now you can see we've been plummeting to the downside. Bitcoin was just under 5% down on the day. You can see that Ethereum's massively down as well. So it was about 10% down just on that wick, and we're starting to move up slowly right now. So is the damage done? This is something that you might be thinking, and we need to be going through all the relevant data points because this is a massive drop so far, and we actually need to be taking a bigger time frame view of what's happening across all different markets, especially the stock markets. So we can see recently that the S&P has been actually plummeting towards the downside as Bitcoin's been holding up, and this has been a really good sign. People were talking about a divergence or a decoupling happening, but now we can see that the Bitcoin potentially is actually starting to catch up towards the stock market. We might be actually dipping towards massive levels. So if we actually look at the volatility index, we can see that we had a massive spike. This has been one of the biggest spikes in over 5 years. You know, since 2020 we've never had such a big spike, and this has been a massive crash off of the news from the tariffs. So of course this has been the time of uncertainty, and since the last time on my channel, this is exactly what we were covering. We were saying that on the initial breakdown, it's unlikely we're going to actually start to V-shape. You know, we had bigger reasons why we started to actually come down, and it's getting around that time where we're going to be seeing a lot more volatility and a direction picked for Bitcoin very soon. So I think it's not the time to be getting too complacent, and it's not the time to be actually losing focus, because now is around the time where we're going to be getting a move towards the downside potentially, or a move towards the upside, to actually start to trap a lot of market participants that think that we're not going to be going anywhere and we're going to be chopping around still. So again, make sure to be watching till the end. And yeah, let's move on to the next chart. So you can see that we're holding this level of support now, and we haven't actually broken above or below. So again, in the short term, we had a 5% dip from Bitcoin, which, you know, was quite big from daily open, which was in and around 84k mark. But still, we're holding this level of support. You can see previously we had this level of support. On the last video, we came and we actually swept the previous month's low as stated, and we actually had a nice bounce. So that was actually quite good to see, but we still are in a downtrend. You can see it's lower lows, lower highs. So the bias remains towards the downside. We still haven't had a decisive move up and, you know, a reclaim and starting to flip the trend. So in my opinion, this is still a downtrend until proven otherwise. And the first level, if we are keen to break above, is that 85.3k level. I do think if you do break above this level, potentially you can become a little bit more optimistic because you're breaking above this local lower high here. So of course, if you actually reclaim this level, that's your first sign of strength, and that's potentially a region where you can actually start to establish some long positions and actually look for price to actually start to tackle this massive level of resistance. So again, I think that until we get that, I'm actually expecting a bit lower. We can actually look at this level of support here. So if we actually zoom out, this actually coincides perfectly with your previous all-time highs. So if I just extend the lines quite nicely, you can see how it perfectly lines up with that 73k level. So you can see this lines up with our previous all-time high over here, and it looks like it's likely we can actually come and hit this region. So in my opinion, if we actually start to sweep below this support level, then the next level to watch is 73k, where potentially you want to wait for a reclaim of the support level to actually show some strength and actually show this level as a big demand zone where buyers are actually stepping in, and you get some confirmation. I think that would be a good level to actually look for that reversal. And then maybe if you have a major high and then a major lower high, that might be a reason to actually start to de-risk a bit more heavily if you think we're still going to be in a downtrend. And if you do believe that we're still going to be in an uptrend, then I do think that that's a decent region where you can actually start to establish some positions again. So looking at the next chart, this is another chart to show you the support level that we're trading at right now, and this is at your previous month's low and of course your previous quarterly low. So this is a key region where if you do actually start to sweep that level, then you know you want to wait for a reclaim before you start to entertain the idea of a long position. And if you can break this trend line as well and you start to put in a higher high, that'll be a very good sign that we're actually potentially starting to shift the trend. But of course, there's a lot of steps involved. You have your 21-week exponential moving average as resistance. You also have your 9 and your 18 as resistance too. And you're in the presence of, a bearish moon phase in a downtrend, which tends to play out quite nicely. You can see if you're in a strong uptrend and you get a bearish moon phase, it doesn't really play out as much, of course, aligned with the technicals. But if you're in a downtrend, it plays out quite nicely. A lot of the time, you do get these moves towards the downside. So I do think that since we're in a downtrend still, I don't think we're gonna V-shape straight away out of here unless we get that, violent move down and then a good reason to indicate that we're potentially starting to reverse. So again, I'm going to be remaining a bit more patient in these regions, and until we can get, a decisive break and, a retest of this downward sloping trend line, consequently actually putting in a break of structure here and then giving us a higher low, then I think that we need to actually just be waiting for that, bullish sign, or else, we can definitely still come down. There's no guarantees in this market, so I think you need to be very, very patient if you agree with my analysis, of course. So this is what I'm seeing, and yeah, that's what I wanted to explain as of this chart. Now, moving on towards the order flow here, so you can see that we had an open interest flush when it came towards the Bybit hack and the tariff news when it first surfaced. So typically, this is a build-up of events where you actually see low funding, then you get an open interest flush before you actually get some boring consolidation and then a short squeeze. You can see previously in 2024, when we had that yen cash and carry trade, we had a massive flush of open interest on the news. Then you got low funding rate environments where you had boring consolidation. Now, this led to a lot of short positions actually opening, and once you actually started to break towards the upside, you had a massive squeeze. And then previously again, you can see in 2023, same thing, open interest flush, then you get low funding before you have some boring consolidation that is actually very prolonged, in the presence of low funding, of course. Then you get a massive squeeze. So in my opinion, long term, I do think that we will break our all-time highs, but there's a lot of things going on right now, especially when you look at the news side of things. So you have to be a bit more patient and wait for the Fed to potentially show the hand, start to talk about rate cuts. So we need to be watching the Fed minutes, which is coming next Wednesday. So of course, that's in the next few days from the time of this recording. So again, that may actually surface some new news that actually may help us get a bit more higher time frame directional bias. But in my opinion, I think that until we can actually get a decisive environment, then we're going to be chopping around a lot, because the VIX is a great indicator to show when the market has a lot of uncertainty. And typically every time you had uncertainty, you can see that you have an inverse relationship. So the VIX goes up, and you can see here that you get these big crashes. So of course, it is likely we can come down. So if you are a bull and you want to wait for, extra confirmation, I do think that, waiting for a good higher high and a break of this downward sloping trend line is, probably a very good move in my opinion. So you can see for the longer term, global liquidity typically starts to actually tick towards the upside once you actually have a decisive move from the Fed. So of course, this is a massive indicator and a massive, signal that potentially, we have QT slowing. So of course, we had a bullish cross on our global liquidity indicator. So once this starts to actually tick towards the upsides aggressively, that actually might forecast the Federal Reserve actually starting to cut interest rates. And we can actually look at the probability of the Fed cutting rates, and you can see that we've priced in a lot more rate cuts now, about 5 rate cuts so far. So of course, this is another indication to show that liquidity is actually going to start stepping in towards the markets. Now, looking at the timing cycles, again, taking it from the halving, so taking 500 days from your halving date and then adding 500 days, you can see that typically that lines up with your bottoms and your tops quite nicely. And right now, we still haven't got to that region where you're 500 days ahead of the halving. So in my opinion, I don't think it's likely we've actually seen the ultimate top this cycle for Bitcoin. Perhaps, we remain range bound and slightly down for Q2, Q3, and then Q4, we actually run it up to the highs. But I think, there's still going to be a lot of opportunity regardless. So in my opinion, I think that it's likely we can actually move towards the upside eventually. But again, during the ebbs and flows, there's a lot of opportunities in my opinion. Of course, one of the main ones would be actually short-term trading. So if you're interested in short-term trading, make sure to be clicking that first link down below, and that will take you to this page over here for HyroTrader. So HyroTrader is a crypto prop firm where it offers you up to $100,000 in starting capital, and you get to retain 90% of profit, giving you actually pass your challenge. So you may ask, what does the challenge entail. And if you actually scroll down, you can see that you have different sizes. So let's say you went for the $100,000 funded account, given that you think you're a good trader and you want to test out your skills, then you can see that you have different evaluations here. So of course you have the 2-step and the 1-step. So we'll just look at the 2-step for now, and you can see that you have the first profit target at 10%. And then if you can pass that stage 1, you would actually graduate from the evaluation stage to the verification stage. Now getting to the verification stage, you only need to make 5%, and then you get your money back that you paid for your evaluation. And now any profit you make, you get to keep up towards 90% once you scale your account. And that is literally how it goes when you're trading with a proprietary firm. So definitely check HyroTrader out, because it's a great opportunity. I'm trading with them right now and I'm finding it amazing. So definitely give it a go if you think you're a good trader and you want to be taking advantage of the ebbs and flows. Now, looking at the 4-year cycle blueprint, I still think that we're in a 4-year cycle, because, the trend is your friend till the end of the trend. This goes for a lot of, sequences and things. And I can see that this trend has held up so far. So until proven otherwise, I'm still going to believe in a 4-year cycle. And typically this is year 3 where your altcoins go parabolic. Now, you might be saying in the comments, like, what are you talking about? My altcoins have been bleeding. Things are not looking good. And I can see that clearly. Ethereum's actually coming towards the downside heavily. So of course, this is something that's going to take time to play out. This is a monthly time frame chart. So I think until Ethereum can actually start to, find a solid bottom, because it's just been coming down in a straight line. And of course, you have other factors like your USDT dominance, and you have Bitcoin dominance as well. So, if, your altcoins actually coming towards this massive resistance level, so your Bitcoin dominance comes into a 72%, perhaps, Bitcoin continues to chop and altcoins bleed, then of course this will be a massive opportunity, in my opinion, to actually load up on your altcoins. So I think accumulating within this range is not the worst idea, in my opinion. I think if you actually manage your risk and you start to layer your bids and you keep on buying on the way down, you'll be happy if it keeps crashing, because you're just buying cheaper. So I think this is a massive opportunity, because eventually I believe in a 4-year cycle, and I think that we're going to actually start to move towards the upside eventually. So maybe we actually visit this $1,400. So maybe we visit this $1,400 region before actually starting to reverse towards the upside. But that's a lot of opportunity, in my opinion. So I think that Ethereum is actually looking quite good. And of course, we have charts like this showing a lot of, funds, a lot of individuals or participants in the market shorting Ethereum. And the majority of the participants in the market statistically tend to be wrong. So in my opinion, it looks like this can be a massive trade that's been slept on, because a lot of people are actually fading the Ethereum price. They've been right so far, but it looks like typically every time this happens historically, you actually get a massive squeeze eventually. So I think Ethereum will make a new all-time high this cycle. So this was a 2021 high, and we haven't breached the high this whole cycle. So I think there's a lot of opportunity given this massive discount that Trump has given to us on a silver platter. So I think, yeah, this is a massive reason to be paying attention to Ethereum. So yeah, that'll be it for me. Make sure to be liking up this video. Let's try to get above 20 likes this video. That'll be amazing. And of course, make sure to be following me on X to be staying up with every single market development. You can see I'm posting these charts before I actually cover them on YouTube. So make sure to be following me on here as well. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a blessed rest of your day or night. Peace, guys. See ya. Bye-bye.